Egyptian magic. The Pharaoh, I don't think that the thought of Egyptian magic was, they used some sleight of hand, and when it came time to confront God's power within Moses, it was really a showdown. It was more than it was a showdown between gods, the Egyptian gods and the Jewish God Yahweh. And each of the plagues actually lined up against one of the Egyptian gods. And Pharaoh would have the magicians could only stand against three of the tests. The first one, of course, was the snakes. But to get to the plagues, there was the only two that the Egyptian magicians could even begin to touch was when the Nile turned to blood and the frogs. And beyond that, they were outpaced, and they didn't even show up into the courts at one point. The Nile, the Egyptians thought, was actually the bloodstream of Osiris. And in the Nile lived the god Hapi. She was the goddess of frogs. So for Moses to turn the Nile, he didn't just turn the Nile into blood, but he turned every vessel, wooden vessel, every container in Egypt that had drawn liquid from the Nile was actually turned into blood. That's where everybody got their water to drink to live. It was the life-giving flow, was that river. And so when Moses turned it to blood, all the other containers in the houses were turned to blood. And Scripture tells us that everyone had to dig into the sand beside the Nile just to get water, because the rest of it was blood. And then when the Egyptians duplicated that, they didn't turn the entire Nile to blood. It was already to blood. They must have done a smaller bit of, some of the water that they pulled out by digging holes next to the Nile to just get some water to drink, to duplicate it for Pharaoh. He wouldn't have wanted them to turn the whole Nile back into blood anyway, because that was the water that they had to drink. But I don't think that the magicians of the Egyptians were really using that supernatural of a thing, because turning water to blood isn't really that hard for a magician. Nor would duplicating the miracle and wonder of the frogs, because the frogs already came out of the river. It would have been easy to just gather some up. It would have been a simple matter, because they were already out of the river. So it would not have been that big of a thing. To catch. Frogs. And after those, the rest of the miracles, like producing gnats, etc., the magicians didn't even attempt. And after the boils, they quit even coming to the court of Pharaoh.